It's Easter Sunday, and we celebrate the reality that Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. If Jesus really did rise from the dead, then he can accomplish all that he promised. His word is faithful and true. If Jesus really did rise from the dead, we can be resurrected too. And if Jesus really did rise from the dead, then the very same power that brought him back to life is a power that is available to each of us in our daily living. As we've been looking in the book of Mark, we got to that halfway point where the disciples recognise that Jesus is the Messiah. But they think he's going to be a victorious political, religious, military leader. They get a shock when he talks about the type of Messiah that he's going to be. A Messiah that will need to suffer, a Messiah that will need to be rejected, a Messiah that will even die, but a Messiah who will come back to life. And not long after Jesus predicts his death and he talks about the way of the cross, he leads his three closest companions, Peter, James and John, up a high mountain, and they have that moment which we call the Transfiguration, where Elijah and Moses appear and talk with Jesus. They want to stay there forever, but Jesus encourages them to come back down the mountain with him. And we read this in Mark chapter 9. Jesus gave them strict orders not to tell anyone what they had seen until the Son of Man had risen from the dead. And they kept the matter to themselves, discussing what rising from the dead means. See, Jesus' resurrection is the key point of Christianity. Without a resurrected Jesus, everything else falls to pieces. For Paul, as he writes to the Corinthian church, he says that without resurrection, there's no reason to preach, no reason to have faith. Christianity without resurrection is empty and meaningless. When he writes to the Romans, he says that resurrection is the unveiling of God's great power. It's Peter who says that resurrection allows us to have a new and a living hope for now and for the future. John talks about resurrection being the foundation for our witness and the foundation for our fellowship with God. And in Acts, we discover that resurrection is the main reason for the early church to be involved in ministry and preaching. Each of the Gospels end with a resurrection encounter. And those Gospels would not have been good news stories if they didn't end with those resurrection encounters. As Jesus encounters the early church, as the disciples and the followers of Jesus encounter the risen Lord, they remind us that one day when Christ returns, we shall be resurrected also. I hope today, on this Easter Sunday, you realise that the empty tomb, the stone that has been rolled away, the folded grave clothes on the tomb, and the absence of a dead body remind us that Jesus is risen. And so we look back and know that our sins have been forgiven. We look around us today and know that Jesus lives in us. He gives us the power to be the people he wants us to be. And that we look forward as people of hope and people who know one day we will be resurrected with all those who are in the family of God. On Friday, we were reminded that we are people of the cross. Today, on Resurrection Sunday, we remember that we are people of the empty tomb because Christ has risen again. He is risen. He is risen indeed. God bless you this Easter.